So, greetings everyone and welcome back to 365 Days of Prog. Today we're going to be listening to the album Angherr Shisspa by the band Koenjihyakkei.
Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog.
So, the name Koenjihyakkei and the album is Angherr Shisspa. Now, if all of that sounds to you like a foreign language, that is because this is the absurdist, unknown, and made-up language of Ambiku, I think, or maybe I'm getting it completely wrong. But this album is basically entirely in gibberish, and it's a wild ride. And I think the best way to emphasize that is by letting you hear some of it. So enjoy my favorite bits from the album itself. As I said, this album is a definite wild ride. Now, I am kind of sorry for not listening to any of Magma's discography before listening to this band and this album in particular. Now, you're probably wondering to yourself, what does Magma have to do with this album? But this band, basically, Koenjihyakkei, are known as the Japanese Magma because they've taken a lot of what Magma did and actually improved upon it and did their own version, mainly harder and more absurd. And I think that hearing Magma before this can actually give some opening to what you're gonna listen to and what you should expect from an album and a band like this. But I did my research beforehand, and although I've never listened to even a single Magma album, I still kinda came prepared for what I was going to hear, and still I was left flabbergasted. And by the way, for those of you who don't know who Magma are, they're a prog group originating from France, if I'm not mistaken, and they did some absurdist type of music which falls under the Zool category, which they basically invented themselves. And this album is inspired by that genre of music. And this album basically is absurdity mashed in with great and amazing musicianship. And it really does harken deeply to the golden era of prog, where music was really well thought out and really complex, and it all stood out as something great with a high production value that you could really enjoy. And yes, I'm talking about the good old 70s and 80s of prog. And it's pretty amazing to hear that this album came out in 2005 because the music on it is really something you'd hear from, as I said, the golden age of prog. And how is this music so great? Well, I think the fact that everyone is playing and singing to such a tight rhythm, such fast beats and actual time-changing signatures is so amazing. You wouldn't believe what you're listening to, and if you're just gonna have a listen at this album and you should count off the time, you really would see that there's a lot to concentrate upon. So the singers themselves, mostly female, they sing in that gibberish voicings and they don't really speak real words, and that's hard enough in itself, but then add up to that a really high BPM and add up to that some changing time signatures of 7/4 and 6/4 and 5/4 and waltzes and everything, and it just goes all over the place. And the fact that they can do all of that and actually stand within that test is really pretty flippin' amazing. And as I said, the female vocals on here made by a few talented singers is just what makes this album pop. I think it's amazing the way they combine this made up language with their singing to make this entire, extravagant masterpiece is just fantastic. And I was listening to this album And I was trying to understand at the beginning which language was this in, because I was expecting to hear something in Japanese, only to later figure out that it was nothing but nonsense. And yeah, their singing and their playing is basically the driving force of this album. And I must say, this might not be the best album we've listened to so far on this list, but I do think that this would have been the best album to hear live. There's something about listening to an album performed live and seeing how it is made in real time is really pretty cool, and I think this album is so impressive that seeing it performed on stage as it's written would just be so marvelously good. So when it comes to the music itself, I can't really tell you a lot about it. I can only tell you, if you've not listened to this album, that the musicians are doing a great job. Everyone is a master of their instrument and everyone knows what they're doing. There's a lot of complexity in this album and it's really thought out well throughout the entire album. And I think every single song is just a delight to the ear, although it can get pretty crazy sometimes. And yes, this is a crazy album, as I said. But all in all, the music on here is great. Now, YouTube tried actually recommending me this album a while back, and I wanted to listen to it because I liked the way the cover looked, but wait a second, we're not in that section yet. And I actually remember opening it up. This was like last year. I remember opening it up in a new tab and waiting to listen to it, and then I just didn't get around to it. I think, I don't know why, I just kind of zoned out, I guess, and closed that tab at some time. And I'm so happy I did, because this is a great album. And as for its greatness, I must tell you what my favorite track is off this album. Now I must say, a lot of them do sound pretty similar, but not repetitive in any way, shape or form. But I think my favorite one, which I've enjoyed listening to again and again, would be, and I have to read this off of this screen because I cannot say these names at all, but it would have to be the opening track of Zidal Razhist. Yeah, that probably means nothing, and that's so freaking cool, and that's a great song and a great opener, and I think you should all give it a listen, like right now. So when it comes to the cover of this album, I love the way that Koenjihyakkei have done and did all their covers until that point, which they basically hearken towards, traditional Japanese culture. And I love that fact. If you look at their other covers, you can see a lot of those, paintings. I think they're print paintings. I remember those ones with like the beautiful mountains and stuff. I'm just gonna show you some examples over here of what they've done in the past that really feels Japanese in its nature. And of course we get to the cover of this episode, which is this demon sort of creature with the bowl, and yeah, it's really cool. It's really simple, but it really does catch the eye, in my opinion at least, and I really love the colors used on here as well. They're really emphasizing the entire, hand-drawn idea of this, and it does serve a great homage to Japanese culture. So overall, this album receives a splendid 8 out of 10. I think it's great music, it's really fun. I'm actually pretty surprised I liked it because it's so absurd at times, but I just had a great time listening to it. My body was moving, I was shaking with excitement in some parts, and I had a fun time just analyzing the music in real time because it was so freaking good. It's not a 9, it's not a 10, it could be better, but for what it's worth, it is a great album that you should go ahead and listen to like right now. So that's about it, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you all tomorrow where we'll be listening to the album Galactic Zoo Dossier by the band Kingdom Come. But until then, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye guys.